Okay, welcome to Module 8.2 on outsourcing. In outsourcing, we're focused on a couple of things. Why do we really want to outsource, and what does outsourcing mean? It doesn't necessarily mean offshoring. The term outsourcing and offshoring are different. All offshoring is outsourcing, but not all outsourcing is offshoring. And we'll introduce the concepts of where we give some of our IT operations to a company that's basically located within the same country, in this case the United States, and that would be called onshoring, but it's still outsourcing. So this has been a contentious point for many IT shops. The two drivers are basically that we can add value in products and services for our internal folks as well as for our customer. And based on the value proposition, it allows the organization to focus on core competency. If I'm constantly managing my IP telephony or I'm constantly managing my servers, that means I have to hire resources to do that, and that means I'm taking money away from areas of my core competency, which might be selling bakery products or selling clothes. So changing the customer-vendor relationships, these relationships have evolved over the years. They've been contentious at times, they've been friendly at times. And I wish there was a way to say, well, there's a silver bullet for this, but there isn't. A lot of times, the best thing that you can do in these vendor relationships is communication and transparency. And a lot of times the vendors usually have an incentive to not be as transparent or not have as much communication. That's usually a problem. That's a sign of a problem. When you buy professional services from a company, you want to make sure you know who you're getting, and you want to make sure that the hiring process is fairly transparent. When you buy things like servers, you want to make sure that there are metrics by which you and the vendor are agreeing upon what the service levels are. The best thing, one of the old adages is fences make great neighbors. Well, contracts and very strict guidelines for those contracts, very detailed contracts, make for good customer-vendor relationships. So there's a 5-option continuum here that's in your book. Professional services, planning, consulting, building and maintaining applications, building and maintaining networks. These types of relationships are on professional services. The product ones might be on the operating platforms. They might be focused more on the actual system, what it's built upon, as well as the administrative functions. And again, as we get further into outsourcing, it spans all of the activities. It cannot be left in a silo. The monolithic outsourcing that occurred in the late 80s, early 90s, was we just basically take our entire IT contract and give it out to somebody. I've actually been a part of some of that on the reverse end, where our entire IT staff was outsourced to, say, an IBM, only to have 3 or 4 years later, the entire IBM contract dissolved and everything brought back in. Now, there are strategies around that. If you have many problems with your IT department, they will temporarily outsource the whole thing to eliminate staff and then gradually bring back pieces, hiring the right talent. So sometimes that does occur. The transitional outsourcing is a choice of outsourcing of maintenance of legacy systems or development of new client systems. The reason you do that is because you're deciding where is most optimal to outsource the key components. You might get a better contract, you might have a better skill set to do that, it just might be overall better to do that. Best of breed outsourcing basically says we might have one company that handles networking, another company that handles our Salesforce system, and another company that handles, say, our SAP system. The challenge here is coordination, because when things go wrong, and they do go wrong, the outsourcing companies have a tendency of throwing grenades over the wall, saying, it's not us, it's them. And then it becomes a management nightmare for the internal folks. In the case of shared services, consolidate all non-core activities to one shared services functional group, and that becomes outsourced. That allows for greater coordination. The problem is that they may not be skilled in all the areas that are being outsourced. They may be very good in a broad sense, but they may not be specialized. So you have to be careful of who you choose there. And then business process outsourcing is basically you're outsourcing all or most of a re-engineered process that is a large IT component. Now this may be where we outsource our new development to another company, and they would bring in business analysts and then have their developers do it. It would be akin to hiring consultants internally, except that you don't manage them, you manage just regular contracts. These do work, they work and they don't work. Again, there's no silver bullet for this. E-business outsourcing, a lot of firms, because they weren't sure of e-business, what they would do is they would just outsource their entire web hosting, their web development for like an e-commerce shop or anything else along those lines. And they would only rely on the company, the original company, for the content. A lot of companies still do this. We see companies that contract with Amazon and let Amazon handle their e-business and even fulfillment. You can also do utility computing, where basically you have an on-demand pricing model. If you need additional servers, say for the holiday season, they handle that. They bring it up to speed and they maintain those service levels. You pay a little bit of a premium for that, but it is possible. So a number of aspects are needed when you to handle outsourcing. One is the organizational structure. Do you have the organizational structure in place to handle this? Do we have the ability to manage vendor relationships effectively? Governance. What is the structure that's going to what controls do we put in place to ensure that what the vendor is saying they're going to be doing is what they're doing? And this gets to, there are multiple types of controls. There's formal controls and informal controls. Most of the vendor relationships are going to be formal controls, unless the case where the consultants are inside the organization, in which case informal controls, such as things like clan control and self-control, which are like behavioral aspects, they can actually take place because you can kind of coerce or gently persuade individuals a certain way of doing things. But for the most part in outsourcing contracts, they are formal controls in the form of clear contracts and SLAs. Other aspects to outsourcing agreements include the capability of the vendor. Have we selected the right vendor? What is the strength of our contract? Have we designed this contract in such a way that we have basically made it bulletproof? What is the length of the contract? Is it a 1-year contract? Is it a 3-year contract? What are our out clauses? And the type of contract, is it fixed bid versus time and materials? One thing to note about this, with regards to the length of the contract and the type of contract, any contract is just a piece of paper. It doesn't necessarily define the relationship, because if there's contention between the two parties, there's nothing that says that the problem will not continue. You have a contract, but it's going to take years to go to court and to deal with court issues and legal issues. So it's always good to maintain relationships. Transparency as well as communication will usually aid in that. From the organizational structure, layers of joint teams are usually established. Top-level team, an operational team, joint special purpose teams. You'll have committees, relationship managers. Again, there is no silver bullet here. And I couldn't even tell you which one would work better in various types of relationships. But what I can tell you is that it is definitely based on the organizational culture of the customer as well as the vendor. You may have two disparate types of cultures, and you may find a structure that will work, in terms of joint teams, or you may not. And conversely, if they're the same culture, it might be easier to find something that'll work because they think a lot alike. Governance, these are service level agreements, responsibilities, performance requirements, penalties, and bonuses. Usually the carrot and stick. Carrots work a lot better than sticks do because sticks are usually then lost. At some point when you have no chance, if we fail to meet the contract, then you know that you're not going to get any money. You generally have no incentive to continue. With bonuses, they tend to work a little bit better, and you can always continue putting that carrot in front. Metrics for performance can be tricky because the definitions have to be clear. It must be clear what we mean by CPU uptime. It must be clear what we mean by 99.9% uptime. Now, that may seem pretty clear. We could do it by minutes, we could do it by hours. However, 99.9% uptime may be during standard business hours. It may not include holidays. It may not include weekends. And so that needs to be clear as part of the contract.